I'm Karin Huffer. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I wrote the book Overcoming the Devastation of Legal Abuse Syndrome as a result of seeing that people who were involved in the court system did not get better in my practice the way that people that were not involved in the court system did. So I began to piece together some protocols and to study the problem. I wanted to cure the cancer. I didn't want to just treat it. So I have struggled to solve the problem. Recently, we gathered all of my efforts, publishing company, a website, all of the efforts under one major umbrella called, it's actually under the Congressional District Programs, and it's called Legal Victims Assistance Project. Kind of broad, kind of big. Everything now, it's brand new, lumped under there for the purpose of having the 501c3 that is supporting, we hope, $1 million grant that we have written. The reason we wrote the $1 million grant is to attempt to help people that simply don't have the money to fight the fights that they need to be fighting. We're hoping to have a radio show that we have guests on, attorneys and others, that people with various problems with the court can call in. The kinds of things I see are people being denied access to their courts. They simply don't have access to a forum for justice. First, they can't afford it. All their money has gone to attorney's fees and costs, all their money. By the time I get them, they're dead broke. So I tried to write a $20 solution in my book. And they're disillusioned, discouraged, and they suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. The contributors to all of this, my own discipline, psychologists, the mental health workers, are insensitive to these problems. And out of this grant, we have 1,500 training, free training we're going to do across this nation of mental health professionals, educating them on legal abuse syndrome. As soon as we're finished with that, we're going to be training, Robin Yabens and I will be training judges and attorneys on legal abuse syndrome. These people go into court, they can't remember, hear, see, organize, or concentrate. And their opposition takes full advantage of that. If you match an individual in the court against a corporation, or against an abusive spouse, or against a sociopath, or a borderline personality disorder, or a stalker, those people love our courts. They play the court. They have their rights. They get to talk. Everything is equal, and they get to go in there and use the court as their next weapon against you, very successfully. So these are the things we want to address, and we want to sensitize judges to. Is your court used as a weapon? Do you inadvertently become the next fist this guy hits the woman with? That is what's happening. So we have a long and a big training issue ahead if we can get the money to do it. If we can offer it gratis and give away the CEUs and CLUs, we think they'll come by the masses, and we make it attractive. If we charge for it after we once do it, I think they'll pay for it. So I think the grant will be self-supporting once it gets off the ground. But we've got to get it off the ground and get an initial body of professionals, multidisciplinary, trained across this nation. And then hopefully we'll have an impact. We organized under the Congressional District Programs, 501c3, Washington, D.C. In other words, if you send money into our organization, it doesn't come to us, it goes to Washington, to this organization who guarantees we do the job, they take the money, they mete it out as we do the job, etc. And it assures the tax deduction. And the project itself, initially, is Legal Victims Assistance. The litigants, if they have PTSD, need to go to a qualified health professional and see. Tell them what your symptoms are. Tell them how you're feeling. If you are diagnosed with PTSD or many other conditions, you're entitled to accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act in the court. That means if you filed, every court has to have an access coordinator. You file your document. Sometimes it's on their form. If they don't have a form, I write the report. I write the report anyway. We attach it to the form because the report's never adequate, in my opinion. But you fill it out, you give it to the access coordinator of the court. Then you are entitled to accommodations that make your time in court more realistic for you. It levels the playing field for you. So the idea is that you are protected by federal law under your civil rights. I don't know why the courts aren't paying attention. Schools pay great attention to this. Every child with a learning problem gets special ed or a 504 plan. And we take it seriously in schools. In the courts, doesn't matter if you can't hear, see, walk, talk, if you have PTSD, can't remember, concentrate. It's invisible at this time. But the new law, Lane versus Tennessee, a rather recent decision by the Supreme Court, strengthened it tremendously. We absolutely have those rights. File those documents and your life should change, and I can tell you what reasonable accommodations are if you want. The first thing, when you tell someone this, the first thing they'll say is, oh my God, I'm afraid to admit that I have anything, then it'll be used against me and my children will be taken away. As I said in the presentation this morning, do we take veterans of wars, children away when they come back with PTSD? If you're in an earthquake and you have PTSD, do we take your children from you? Or a tornado or a car accident? It's absurd. Psychiatric injury is not mental illness. You don't treat a broken leg with chemotherapy.